What's on everyone's agenda today? Oz said into the suffocating silence that was choking the life out of every gosh darn thing in the kitchen. Honestly, I didn't know how I was still alive. Well, I wasn't alive. Technically. Technically, I was dead. But I meant alive in terms of my afterlife life. That said, if this silence continued for much longer, I was pretty sure I wouldn't be alive in any life. After spending a bunch of my afterlife years running a detective agency with my best friend Sabrina, she'd taught me the importance of not filling a silence, especially when getting details from a client or interviewing a suspect. But I doubted she'd ever felt a silence like this one. We were 8 days into it. It almost felt like I'd gone deaf. The only time anyone spoke in Oz's presence now was for necessities and civilities, and it was the barest of civilities. The barest of civilities that they still managed to weaponize against Oz. And I say they, because I was trying to be Switzerland in this whole mess, and yet that seemed to mark me as an enemy to both sides. Petal, one of my housemates, had graduated from her probation 9 days ago. We'd had a party. Oz, in his last act as her parole officer, had awarded her a framed graduation certificate. We'd had a lot of cake and sent her off into the world, alone. None of us were happy about it. The party had been one of the saddest affairs I'd ever attended, and I'd attended my own funeral. On her first day as a free woman, Petal had come around for breakfast, and Oz had told her that she wasn't allowed in the house for the first 6 months of her post-graduation life, because she was no longer a housemate, and housemates were only supposed to socialize with housemates. Naturally, her response had been tears, and our response had been, well, our response had been to loudly and energetically disagree. The really uncomfortable thing about it was that I could understand the purpose behind the rule. Petal clinging on to her probation life was no different from clinging on to her alive life. Not that she did that. That was more of a me thing. But, alive or dead, clinging to the past was still clinging to the past. And I could understand the rule of not letting the recently graduated socialize with their old housemates as a way to force them into new friendships. That said, since another rule was that while you were on probation, you weren't allowed to socialize with anyone outside of your housemates. It was the equivalent of forcing someone to build a support system and then ripping it away.